Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Source Friday. My name is Abby. I'm filling in for Rizal this week. She has the flu and strep throat, so wishing Rizal some speedy recovery. But glad to see you all here, and it's great to see people, saying hi in the chat. So hi to Hallis, Ariette. So this is also my first time running a stream using StreamYard, so if I do something really funky, please be gracious. But good to see you all. Say hi in the chat, say where you're from. Oh, we have Colombia, that's fun. Highlight that. And I'm here today with Ram Iyengar. So Iyengar, Ram, pass it to you to introduce yourself. Ram, we don't hear anything yet. While you figure that out, I still don't hear anything. I wonder if that's my end. Nope. We have several people from Colombia. This is exciting. So hey, Carlos. Kenya, that's great. Hey, Felix. Great to have you here. I'm calling from Canada. I should have said that earlier. I'm based in Toronto. Ram, I still don't hear you. Can everyone else hear Ram? Hello from Turkey. Nigeria. We'll give you a moment. I'll just have fun here with the chat. Results coming in. Hey, someone from LA, welcome. Someone is also here from Canada. Yes, thanks for calling in from Canada. You have Kenya, Morocco, Zimbabwe. This is truly a global open source Friday today. Indiana, welcome. The Netherlands. Oh, yeah, Hollis is asking, who else loves FOSS, OSS? I do. That's why we're here. Ram, any luck with your audio? I know we had an echo earlier, so this is probably my fault for asking you to try to debug that. Sweden, Peru. No sound from right, yeah. Okay, you can't, but you can hear me. I'm not the one doing StreamYard wrong, yeah? Okay. Mexico, so many. Dallas. Oh, Iran. Oh, it scrolls too fast. I couldn't highlight it. There we go. Hey, Toronto. I'm in the beaches in Toronto, Ridish. If you could say, where in Toronto are you? We should have like a Toronto Open Source Friday sometime. I think that would be fun. We can all call in from the same spot, maybe. Romania, Cuba, India. Oh, I'm very excited that so many people are saying where they're coming from. A lot of Cuba in a row. And I think Ram is going to rejoin us. Very good. Ivory Coast. And again, I apologize. This was my my first time hosting StreamYard. I probably should have made sure his audio worked before we clicked the broadcast. Oh, UAE. I used to live in Saudi when I was a kid, so that's fun. Yeah, try to thank you, Rizal. Ram is leaving. He has left, and hopefully he will return soon. Wait, from the hometown of Santa, the Santa. Is that's not the North Pole? Is that, or is the Santa something else? Buenos Aires. Nice. Oh, Ghana. Welcome, Manuel. Oh, lots of comments. Lots of comments from LinkedIn. A lot of people calling in from there. Cairo, welcome, Mohammed. And Ram, you're back.
Yes.
Oh, let me add you to the stream. There, and I can hear you. Oh, yay. Everyone, round of applause for Ram, figuring out audio issues. We made it. Everyone's still saying where they're coming in from. Much love from India. That's great. Okay. Well, Ram, you can also tell us where you're dialing in from and give us a brief intro for yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Ram Iyengar. I am Chief Evangelist at Cloud Foundry. Cloud Foundry Foundation is a nonprofit tasked with governance around the open source Cloud Foundry project and a whole bunch of associated open source projects. So, psyched to be here on Open Source Friday. I think it's definitely a great stage for Cloud Foundry and Cloud Foundry related technologies. But also, big thanks for having me here.
Yeah, of course. And we're glad that you could be here and that we didn't have to reschedule with the Rizal getting sick. So I'm glad I was able to step in. Cool. And do you want to
Yep.
tell us a little bit about your open source project that you'll be talking about today?
Yeah. So a little bit of history about Cloud Foundry itself. Um, the project has been around for a little over 10 years now, which is like a million years in the software world. It's a very stable platform as a service experience that puts developer self-service and service discovery and all of these developer and operations workflows that enable a platform over infrastructure. Um, Cloud Foundry has been very successful in the VM space. About 5 or maybe 6 years ago, they also started to grow into containers and container orchestration. But obviously, we know who the winner in those races were. So it's seen a lot less adoption in terms of people using it for the purposes of containers and container orchestration. But more recently, we've also launched a project which is technically our third attempt at putting the Cloud Foundry experience over Kubernetes. And I'm going to showcase that project a little bit today. So it's about creating this platform experience over Kubernetes and providing the same kind of developer experience and polish and self-service and all of those beautiful things that Cloud Foundry is known for.
That's great because I know Kubernetes can be quite steep to get into. So I'm glad that you're adding this layer. That's awesome. And I guess you answered it a bit, but can you talk a bit more about the inspiration behind this project?
I think the key is in what you just mentioned, right? Kubernetes can be a little complex and daunting for any team to start making use of. Now, in terms of pure marketing, like everybody wants to be using Kubernetes, right? I mean, the Google does it, and all the big names that I know, Uber does it, and Airbnb does it, and Spotify does it, and wow, we should all be doing it. So um, pure marketing speak aside, if there are software engineering teams out there who are using containers at scale, then Cloud Foundry is sorry, Kubernetes is a bit of a no brainer, right? You want something that's keeping your containers afloat and making sure that stuff doesn't go down, and just the nature of the problem itself that Kubernetes is solving is extremely complex.
Mm.
And so Kubernetes as a technology has to be complex too, and there's nobody there's nothing people can do about it, right? And then there's also the notion of 15 ways to solving a given problem. And no one person is right, no one team is right, no one technology can be a silver bullet and an answer to everything. And so the CNCF landscape, as we've seen, has exploded in terms of all these different technology pieces, that some of which solve the same problem, some of which solve different problems, and what have you, right? So you can have a handful of projects for like CI/CD stuff, and then you can have like a handful of different projects that do um, networking. You can have like a few projects that do ingress, and you can have a few projects that do load balancing well. And so there's all these different projects that aim to do one thing and perfect that one particular aspect of Kubernetes. And then you want people to be able to mix and match and create a permutation of the set of CNCF tools that solve the problem well for their particular need. And so there's like hundreds of CNCF projects, hundreds of these tools, and then there's one combination that's probably going to work for you. And so as an engineering team, you can pick and choose and test and try and trial and error and calibrate and recalibrate and decide on what you want to use. Or if you don't have the time for it, there's a community that has like a decades worth of experience in solving this golden path to production, in solving it at scale, keeping it secure, keeping it active, keeping it under development all the time. And um, because we have a very active maintainer community who have a lot of mind share in this developer experience over complex infrastructure space, it was very natural to apply all of these solutions that we've learned over the years to Kubernetes today.
Mhm.
And if there's something new tomorrow, then there's probably going to be a Cloud Foundry for Technology X in future too. But
Yeah.
that's really what it is.
That's awesome. So it's really adding this layer that solves the problem that most or many companies have, and relying on your maintenance and your technology that you've built.
Correct. I mean, it's fully open source. So the added advantage is you can take this Cloud Foundry Koreifi, as it's being called. You can take Koreifi and you can swap out, let's say, the build workflow with something that you already use. You can swap out the deploy workflow to something that you might already be using. And so one of the downsides of Cloud Foundry that we often hear is it's way too opinionated. And
Mm,
so this is an attempt at sort of solving that as well. So you have a very modular piece of technology that you
mhm,
can pick and choose, and you can just take it as you want to, follow the opinion of the Cloud Foundry community, or like I said, pick and choose and do something bespoke with it that suits your organization. So um, that's that's really the goal here.
yeah, cool. And before we dive into the demo, I did want to ask, just for folks that don't know, can you explain cloud native to me like I'm 5 years old?
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Um, so the definition of cloud native is about taking technology that we have today that works but does not necessarily work in a simple scalable manner, and transform that into an experience that is that works on the cloud, that is scalable on demand,
Mm,
and it comes with like a whole raft of um, I want to say prerequisites, but it comes with like a whole raft of attributes associated with it, which is it's open source. It starts with source code every time, irrespective of what is the tool that you're trying to make cloud native.
mm,
And it starts with being able to containerize and deploy that technology as a workload on Kubernetes.
mm,
So, for example, if you were doing CIC, let's say CD, right?
mm,
Continuous delivery of your applications. And then now you want to do cloud native CD. You basically mm, avail all the advantages that Kubernetes has for application workloads, and you make that available to tooling as well. You
mm,
make that available to security as well. You make that available to um, load balancing as well, right?
mhm,
So you basically expand this notion of there being a resilient scalable way to run workloads, and you apply that to all of the other tooling and other things there is. And so basically get everything to run on an orchestrated container runtime.
mm. Yeah, and there's so many advantages to just running in the cloud. And you mentioned scalability. Yeah, that's great. I think it's a great time to have a demo. Do you want to share your screen and show us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure do. Let's see. So this is going to be terminal windows, just the way a developer audience likes, I guess. So let's see. I'm going to start off with this code base. It's the Koreifi code base that I just checked out. Let me quickly show this on. GitHub. Like I said, Cloud
Hey,
Foundry is.
Firefox. For the listeners, I used to work at Mozilla, so
Oh,
good job using Firefox.
right. So the bulk of the action at Cloud Foundry happens on GitHub. So
Mm.
a big heartfelt thanks from the community for doing what you folks do and being the best at it. So this is the home for Koreifi. It is where all the action happens. So anybody who wants to get started, I think the GitHub page is like a great place to start, and the README has various links to what are relevant. And again, just a bit of history lesson here. I mentioned that this was like the third attempt at getting Cloud Foundry to work on Kubernetes. So like the first attempt at doing that back in the day was in the form of two or three projects known as Quarks and Fizzle and Irene and all these things. So if you really go back into the history books about Cloud Foundry, you will probably run into these names. But those were like the first attempts at getting Cloud Foundry's orchestrator just replaced with Kubernetes. And then making sure that all of the tooling around just operated normally, but just that final step of containerizing the workload and placing it in the Kubernetes runtime was done by a custom component back then. And so obviously there were issues with that. Kubernetes as a technology was maturing and developing its own set of tools around what Cloud Foundry was already doing, which is um, placing a workload and then building the artifact itself, and then putting load balancers around it, configuring ingress and all of that. So it was becoming very difficult to support Cloud Foundry components for the Kubernetes core. And so the next attempt at doing this was replacing a lot of the, I don't want to say clunky and piss off a lot of community members, but a lot of the clunky Cloud Foundry based tooling with more cloud native and Kubernetes native tooling, right? And so we had the second iteration of this. But then it also carried forward like a historic problem, which is you can't really get a Cloud Foundry going where you come back from work, you just kick off a project, you make a few changes, you deploy it, you test it and stuff like that. So Cloud Foundry was never capable of doing this lightweight hobby programmer sort of workflow. And this was important because adoption for open source technology and adoption for developer first tools happens locally first, and then gradually builds to other installations and things like that. And so it was something that the Cloud Foundry community felt that they were missing on historically and even with this new technology. So keeping these things in mind and keeping the fact that Cloud Foundry really needed to be just an API shim as opposed to something very complex and difficult to manage around Kubernetes. And you had a very simple lightweight Kubernetes API, and then all you needed was another simple lightweight Cloud Foundry API, and they could do all of the um, communication through these APIs. And so that is the vision with which the current version has started. And so some of that is documented here for those that are interested in reading this. It's an open document. Feel free to go through that. And we've also managed to document some of the architecture decisions we've made. So a lot of this is CRDs that are running for different for accomplishing like different workflows. And then there's other parts in terms of what happens in like traditional Cloud Foundry environments that we are transposing to Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes, and what we cannot do as well. So those are all documented well as well. But yeah, that's a good point to get started um, with Cloud Foundry, with Koreifi, and this is basically a clone of that. Now, I'm not going to go into the installation itself, but what I have here is a kind cluster that is already running a Cloud Foundry locally for me, right? And I am also going to open up um, K9s, which will connect to like the local cluster and can show us a few things. So you can see the different namespaces that are created here, and the different tools that are basically a part of Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes or the Koreifi architecture, right? So we make use of Contour, and we make use of like build packs, which are a couple of the CNCF projects, in addition to like a whole bunch of things. And let's see. I think the important part here is the deployment experience itself. Okay, so I am going to um, use the magic cf push command, which is basically what pushes a code base onto the remote instance. And in this case, the remote instance, let's see, I can do cf target, right? And it will tell me what my endpoint is, and what my org and spaces. So orgs and spaces are how Koreifi or Cloud Foundry does multi-tenancy on any remote cluster. So we have a version of multi-tenancy um, that's capable of doing accomplishing true user separation on Kubernetes. Now, obviously, as an admin, I have access to all of these namespaces and clusters. But the idea is, you give your users enough access just so that they know what they're capable of running. So this one command is a demonstration of all of the apps that I have access to. So right, so I'm going to do cf push, and I'm going to get like a test node app, and I'm going to call that open source Friday demo. Right, I need to say that this is the path, so I'm missing that. And so this idea with Cloud Foundry is that you pass along like a single command, and Cloud Foundry is able to deploy that for you. Now, what I'm pushing here is a Node.js app, but what I also want folks to notice is there's nothing that I specified that's Node.js specific, right? So all I'm saying is, here's the code, go and deploy this. And this was like the big marketing thing around Cloud Foundry, where um, there was a haiku about Cloud Foundry, which basically said, here's my code, run it in the cloud for me, I don't care how. And the that single command experience is what demonstrates that capability.
I love that there's a haiku. That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and there's also a very a more recent chat GPT poem version of that, but that's probably for later.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I should highlight is this project called Paketo Build Packs. So build packs again were a thing that started along with when Cloud Foundry, Heroku back in the day were a big deal, and I guess continue to be a big deal. And I think most folks will agree with me when I say Heroku is like the gold standard of developer experience as far as deployment goes. It's definitely being replaced these days. There's a lot more that we can use, but not in like an apples to apples manner. I love the new GitHub Actions experience. I love the experience that Helm and Terraform and all of these other tools are bringing into. But not a day goes by when I don't think, oh wow, this was already a thing with Heroku back in the day. But it's basically that experience where all you need to do is specify like a single command, and then it returns with like a URL that you can make use of to access your apps. And so this endpoint here is basically the root that has been created for the app. Now, because of the use of build packs, this whole experience of you don't have to necessarily specify the language and the tooling and the framework, and um, the Cloud Foundry controller is able to figure out that there is a Node.js app thanks to some of the hooks that are there. The build pack has a life cycle stage known as a detect, and then it's able to select the appropriate sort of build pack for building this. And so it's able to extract environment variables. It's able to extract the right kind of install commands and the build commands, and also the start command. And so it specifies what it has been using. There's obviously ways to override all of this and add additional stuff and things like that, but the general idea here is even saying defaults are good enough for the workflow to succeed. And so you can make use of this URL. Excuse like the security thing because we don't have like certificates configured, but that's basically it. So you just specify what's the app that you want to run from the path, and it's now deployed on that Kubernetes cluster that we were seeing.
Nice. That's awesome. That was pretty smooth.
Yeah, and you can do this for like a bunch of other languages and things as well. So I have, let's say, a Go app here, and I'm just going to make use of this sample. So you can see that it has like a very straightforward set of files. It does nothing fancy, but then if I say cf push go sample, it's going to go through the exact same process. So basically packages the source, pushes it to the cloud controller. The cloud controller will then invoke the right kind of build pack, so it can detect that there's a go.mod that's doing the dependency management. And so let me pick that particular build pack and then create like the workload for it. And it's going to, if there are, if you do repeated sort of cf pushes for like the same stuff, then it's going to do a lot of caching that makes builds faster. But this is basically the exact same experience. And then the what I would like to highlight once again is it did not necessarily specify that this is a Go application at all. So it was just cf push app name.
Yeah. That's nice how there's so much like detection and just it magically handles all these different cases. That's awesome. There you do have a couple questions. Actually, before that, there's a fun comment. Just Cloud Native is like having a magical computer that can do anything. I thought this was a fun description of Cloud Native, but it's not just one computer. It's like having lots of computers that can work together as a team. So thanks, Umar, for that nice comment.
I think that's the perfect definition to give a 5-year-old.
There we go.
Not what I said.
Thanks, Umar, for helping us communicate to 5-year-olds. I appreciate it. There is a question here. Can it also select alternate ports if the default port is busy? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, this shouldn't be an issue
Okay.
as long as the port variable is parameterized, right? It's going to reroute traffic to that container and to that application by itself.
Mm-hmm. And then there was another comment here. This new version hopefully runs on K3s. Any comment on that?
It should.
It should. Okay.
Um, I will definitely remember to test it and post on like Cloud Foundry socials. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to follow us there, I'll definitely make sure to post something there, because I know it's tested on kind clusters. I've done Minikube in the past.
Mm-hmm.
For like bigger cloud providers, we regularly test Azure, GCP, and AWS Kubernetes services. I'll make sure to give it a spin on K3s and let you know. Thanks for the
All
question.
right. So follow Cloud Foundries on socials. Do you want to say the handle or anything if people want an update?
Sure. We're Cloud Foundry Foundation on LinkedIn and Cloud Foundry on Twitter. And those are really the two places that I post to.
Nice.
Right. So
And what
let's
do you?
see if.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry, I was going to ask,
Yeah,
what did you just do?
no,
I
go ahead.
wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, so I was just waiting for the app to continue complete building. You know, so this is an functional app too.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. That's so smooth. I was reading questions while you did that, so I
Yeah.
like you did it so quick. Oh, there's another question from
Yep.
How. Yeah, is there any commercial vendor option for Koreifi at this time? Is that
Yeah.
yeah?
Koreifi is a part of VMware Tanzu, and it's under the name Application Adapter. Um, so this application service adapter for VMware Tanzu service is Koreifi under the hood. So you might want to check that out.
Nice. Annie, do you have another question? OpenShift should work out of the box.
Ooh. Well, interoperability has been a strong point of the Cloud Foundry fort. We have demonstrated OpenShift integrations and ways to work with OpenShift in the past. Um, and I should imagine that it is possible, but I can't comment on the current state, how it stands, because I haven't seen anything in terms of testing this or having tried it out myself. But I should imagine it would.
Nice. And Andrew, I guess if you want to know more, you can follow Cloud Foundry on socials.
Thanks, Abby. I mean, what I have tested this on in the past is using GitHub Actions. So there's like an older version of this that I ran, and then this has been tested in the past too. So one of the things that something like this does very well is the interface provides a simple way to deploy from any tool of your choice. So we've done GitHub Actions, we've done Jenkins, like just the regular classic Jenkins experience. Um, you can recycle all of these existing workflows that you have with the CF for K8s or the Koreifi interface, right? So Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes is just an endpoint, and so all you need to do is basically be authenticated to that. So like I said, you basically figure out this endpoint, and then as long as you're logged in and you have the right kind of spaces and other things configured, you can post any app to a Kubernetes backend of your choice.
Nice. Yeah, and I'd love to see. Were you going to demo the GitHub Actions with this, or show us the
Um,
that you've used?
yeah, I don't have something prepared,
Okay.
but I have something written up in the past. Let's see. GitHub is the most popular version control. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's two pieces of this that we actually configured, right? So I was very excited when GitHub container registries came out, and that's what prompted this demo more than anything. So I made use of the GitHub container registry to store all of the images that are exported at the end of the build process. And basically, the there is a CF action task that you can make use of, and it basically deploys to a CF endpoint of choice. So
Mhm.
here, you configure like the endpoint. Let me make this slightly bigger.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and you make use of this job where you create the endpoint, like I mentioned, provide the username and the password along with like the org and the space that the GitHub action has to use. And push is going to be like the default deployment command. So you can configure all of that information in like an entry point script, and
Hmm.
that basically gets called every time um, you know you configure GitHub actions to run. And so um, it basically takes a Docker image and does like a bunch of configuration on that, checks out the code from GitHub and does the deploy. And it was pretty nifty. And so the idea that um, you can make use of um, any remote endpoint and just deploy to that simply um, was just too enticing. And like I said, the big part was the container registries that also came with GitHub. So I was very curious to make use of that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and that seems so smooth. Just like every time you push or like make a release, that it'll just deploy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. So it's great that Koreifi is open source. Do you have any thoughts on how we can make open source more sustainable, or how Cloud Foundry is able to offer Koreifi as open source?
I mean, open source has been the Cloud Foundry ethos from the start. Um, I don't think there's a point in time that I can go back to when I don't remember it being, driven by the community and being very open and democratic in that way. So there's definitely challenges though. Being a multi-company open source project, um, you sort of have to embrace the ambiguity of not just one but so many organizations around you. And I think that is like the biggest challenge there is in terms of being able to sustain this across changing outlooks and evolving purposes and different end goals for all of these different companies, right? So but I think the community has always been very strong, very close
Mhm.
knit, um, and coming together not just in terms of technical contributions, but also like documentation and
Mhm.
outreach and evangelism and all of these functions has you know been a typical challenge with the community. But we're working through those. There's I think a few great initiatives that have happened over the years that has made things simpler and more sustainable. as far as open source communities go, which is I mean, a very small example of this is marking issues as good first issues, right?
Mhm.
So when you invite folks to the community and then they go through your issues and your backlog, and then there's like a good first issue there, it invites people to pick it up and start contributing and start making inroads, right? And this whole um, era of COVID that we've had, where people have been forced to collaborate remote and not see each other's faces, but make great engineering decisions. So, I think the open source community has been doing that for years
Mhm.
before COVID, and so this whole remote work, forced sense of remote working has been, I think, an unforeseen, an unplanned, but rather good outcome of having gone through the pandemic.
Right.
But I don't want to boast about the pandemic too much for obvious reasons, but
Yeah.
I think this one side effect has been something good for the tech community at large, where we are now able to think in terms of how can we all contribute, being remote, being
Yeah.
different organizations and things like that. So
Yeah. And I do like the model of having multiple organizations govern an open source project. I think it creates
mhm,
a little bit more sustainability. So it's not just one company making all the
correct,
decisions. This way you have a little bit more accountability, but it is tough getting everyone's aligned and like understanding what
correct.
everyone's goals are. So Andrew actually had a question here related to that. Amazing, insightful multi-org challenges. How best deal with multi-org and best practices? Any thoughts on that?
Um, I think that single question itself like deserves an episode of its own.
I believe,
Uh,
yeah.
and there's lot of big and small open source organizations that we can look to, right? Like just look at the CNCF. Their
Yeah.
growth has been tremendous, and just the sheer number of projects that keep knocking at their doorstep, so to say, um, is very difficult to keep up with. And so, and but they've all focused on providing this amazing platform. And so I think if communities approach this from not just a technical standpoint, like educating people about projects is just as important as you know doing technical contributions and I don't know, making a code base 10% more performant in a quarter, right?
Mhm.
So making sure that stuff is documented and roadmaps are updated. And I think I don't want to keep harking back to all of the GitHub features that already provide support for this, but it's all right there: projects and roadmaps and milestones and tags and releases, and all of it is available natively in GitHub version control. And so the tools are there in order for companies to make these multi-org open source projects transparent.
Mhm.
And I think an active pursuit of this transparency, and keeping in mind the goals of not just building projects but also um, I mean, building technical competency, but also making sure that the non-technical parts of it are checked off. Like, make a YouTube video of how this works, and
Mhm.
write a small blog post now and then about what you're working on, and if you'd like to see more contributions in a particular area, and just share information with the larger community about what problems you solved this month or this week or this quarter, or um, just tiny things like that, I think, go a long way in
Mhm.
terms of showcasing how unified you are in terms of the core vision of the project.
Right.
And I think ultimately it all boils down to identifying the right people within these orgs to come forward and take leadership roles and be
Mhm.
active contributors, and um, maintain that sense of community, to a point where even if they switch roles or move companies or um, don't necessarily do the same line, or they're not in the same line of work anymore. They do have some notion of coming back and contributing, and so
Mhm.
building that human experience, I think, is also helpful in a big way when
Yeah.
you deal with big communities like that.
Yeah, and I definitely think that like stakeholder management is such a big part of working with these groups. And just
Right.
shout out for the project's roadmap beta that's out right now. So if you haven't checked that out yet, you can sign up for the. I think you can join a wait list to get flagged into the beta, but I think they're flagging people in pretty quickly. So it's a
Hmm.
fun coming up soon. We have another question.
Yep.
Any plans to contribute Koreifi to the CNCF?
um At the moment, it's governed by the Cloud Foundry Foundation, much in the same way as any CNCF project would be. The goal definitely is to be part of that CNCF landscape in the PaaS quadrant. There's a lot of emptiness there right now.
Yeah,
Um, so the Cloud Foundry Foundation, just in terms of background, is a directed fund of the Linux Foundation, much like the CNCF is also a part of the Linux Foundation. So both of these foundations are managed by the same parent org and have the same kind of outlook in terms of how we manage and keep the project alive and things like that. But if the powers to be decide that Koreifi probably has a better home there, and depending on the decisions made by our governing board and their governing board, and all of the different TOCs and other committees that we have, then it could happen. But there are
yeah,
no plans at the moment of
yeah.
doing anything like that.
Yeah, it sounds like Koreifi already has a pretty nice home
Yeah.
in a foundation. So thanks for responding to that one. So how can people contribute to Koreifi?
Like I said, our GitHub repo is the perfect starting point. So GitHub, Cloud Foundry, Koreifi will get you there.
Mhm.
Um, all of our backlog is marked with like good first issues, where people can jump in.
That's great.
Every little part of Cloud Foundry, whether it's Koreifi related or otherwise, is governed by working groups, much like other open source communities. So you can hop on to like calls that they have. Everything is well documented in terms of the decisions that people are making, and they're all linked off of our repos. So the repo is the place.
Nice, sweet. So yeah, go check out the Koreifi repo. I'll post that in the chat again. So if you're in, I think Twitch or YouTube, you'll see this chat. But we'll post it somewhere for everyone to find. Cool. Any other questions from the audience? So you can. This is your last call for questions, audience. We're wrapping up on time soon. But in the meantime, I think I'll ask a fun question, if that's okay. We'll
Mhm.
do some controversial ones. GIF or GIF?
GIF.
GIF. Interesting. I'm GIF. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh. I don't think that's a fair question to um, ask somebody who lives in like the Indian subcontinent, because there's like so much to choose from, right? But if I really had to make a choice, there's a South Indian dish called idli, which is basically like tiny cakes made of like rice and lentils, and it's like a very comfortable food for me,
Yeah,
and that would be my pick.
nice. Yeah, I don't think I've had that before. I'll have to find it sometime. We have a pretty good little India here in Toronto, so we'll look for it. Okay, final question. I don't think there's anything else in the chat. Also, I do apologize, chat. I put the wrong link earlier. I missed the I at the end of Koreifi, but there it's
Ah,
there now. What's your favorite Beyonce song?
ooh, I Beyonce. Nothing comes to mind, to be honest. I Not a big fan of that genre of music, but
All right, that's fine. Cool. Any are you Googling a Beyonce song right now?
yeah, I mean, I might not remember the name,
Go
but
ahead.
if I
I'm sure it's in the ethos. I'm sure you've heard many of her songs. We'll give you a minute.
yeah,
Okay. Hmm.
I feel like a geriatric millennial today.
It's okay. We have another vote for Jif
Okay.
and support
Cri-
for no Beyonce. So Mark
Oh,
is
okay.
really on your side there.
No, I think there was one with like Jay Z, "Crazy in Love" or
Oh
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
yeah. I
Cool.
think that's the only one that I can recall.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Well, I think we'll end it there. Any final words, Ron, before we end the stream?
Um, I mean, it's a great time to be participating in this whole um, platform over Kubernetes ethos, right? So, one of the old adages goes, when in a gold rush, try and sell spades. And so, everybody is rushing towards Kubernetes right now, and there's probably like a ton of folks who can benefit from like a great platform experience. And so, I'm happy I'm able to work in that space, and it's been rewarding. And I invite anybody interested in like contributing to open source to also check out this vertical of platformization on Kubernetes. And so that's really my big pitch here today.
That's great. That's great words to end on. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for Open Source Friday. Special thanks, Ron. That was a great conversation. Sorry we had the technical issues at the beginning, but we got
Yes.
there. We made
Yeah.
it.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks for having me. I think Rizal was the one who invited me to this. So big thanks to her too. But
Yes.
yeah, I was
Many
happy to
thanks,
make it. And
Rizal. I hope you get well soon. So, chat, everyone in the chat, please wish Rizal some speedy recovery. I'm sure she'll appreciate it. Cool. Well, thanks, everyone. I'm going to close this off, but see you next time. And Rizal will be back here unless she's still sick. Then maybe I'll help. But Rizal should be back next week. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oops. Sorry, I meant to end broadcast. Okay.